So you're thinking about adding an ADU to your property in San Diego and you want to know what really goes into that. Today I'm going to take you through the entire process step by step, from the permitting, the designing, and all the way to the completed product that you can enjoy yourself or put a tenant into. So if that's what you're looking for, this is the video for you. Stick with us because we're going to get after it right now. Hey, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is about living in San Diego County, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel, tap that bell for notifications, and you'll be the first to know about any changing market conditions right here in San Diego. My name is Dan Beer, and every single day we're getting phone calls, text messages, emails, and setting up Zoom calls with people just like you looking to make the move within San Diego or to San Diego. And whether that's for you in 9 days, in 9 months, in 9 years, we absolutely love it. We just want to help make the process easy and help you make that smooth move in San Diego. So what is an ADU? ADU stands for Accessory Dwelling Unit. And while that acronym has been popularized in recent years, for years we've also just referred to them as granny flats or as casitas. So it's essentially just a secondary unit on a residential property that's added. And the reason they exist is that people want to add value to their property, whether it's for rental income or maybe it's for multi-generational living, or for even art studio or workout room. It's just an additional dwelling unit. Now, what makes it an ADU, a dwelling unit, is that it does have a cooking area, right? It has a kitchen, it has a bed space, a bedroom space, and it has a bathroom. So it is a fully contained living unit that in theory you would be able to rent to a tenant should you choose to. Of course, again, a lot of people will just choose to put family members there or even use it for secondary use, personal use. The key is, however, that they will typically add value to the property, increasing what you could eventually sell that property for. Now, appraisals can vary based on whether it's seen, based on that particular property, your property, if it's really more of an additional space for the unit itself, or if it really does function as a rental unit. And often what that's going to have to do with is just access, right? If it were a rental unit, would they be able to live in privacy, or would they essentially be out in your backyard hanging out in your pool? So that would be an example of one that would be viewed as more of an addition to an existing property, but not for a tenant, versus one that might have its own direct access and could function independently. Either way, broadly speaking, in California, an ADU is typically going to add $200,000 to $500,000 or so in property value, but that could also vary widely depending on where that property is located. Is the property located on the beach in La Jolla? Is it located inland? And so there will be variance. Broadly speaking, again, $200,000, $500,000 or so in additional value. So the brass tacks of it is, how do you decide if an ADU is actually a smart move for your specific situation? Well, first you have to understand local regulations, and San Diego has specific requirements for setbacks, parking requirements, and key is size limitations. So most importantly, check with the city's Planning and Development Services Department to make sure that your particular property is eligible for an ADU. Now, the good news is the city wants and the state wants, but particularly San Diego has been great about wanting us to increase density. And that's really what the entire program is about. And so it's fairly easy, especially much easier than it was in years past, to add properties, to add units to your existing property, but still don't take it for granted. Make sure you check with the department and make sure that it is cleared. Now, generally speaking, it can be located on residentially zoned properties that have an existing residential unit. So the beauty of it is, how many people want a 2-unit, a 3-unit, a 4-unit? Well, now we can take single family residences and turn it into multi-family income, while of course still being zoned residential and being able to get residential financing. Now, there are attached and detached ADUs. So an attached ADU would be, imagine there's a home. This is the exterior wall of the home. The home's over here. And attached to it is the ADU, so it shares a wall. And an attached ADU, you can be up to 50% of the current residence's size. So if it's a 2,000 square foot property, you could go with 1,000 square feet on an attached ADU. And that attached ADU, while being able to go 50% of the existing structure, is limited to 1,200 square feet. So even if you're attaching it, in other words, to a 5,000 square foot residence, no, you cannot add 2,500 feet. You are limited to up to 1,200. Now, on a detached ADU, meaning that there's the existing structure and fully detached from it, the ADU is going to be built with its own 4 walls. Now you can go 1,200 square feet on the ADU regardless of the size of the existing structure. And remember that all attached or detached ADUs, so regardless of attached or detached, have to comply with setback rules. So again, make sure that you're talking to an architect that's designing this thing that is experienced with ADUs, and make sure that you check with the city and don't make the mistake of putting a structure up that then you have code issues and violations on. Now, while there's parking requirements for ADUs, if the structure is located within 1/2 mile of public transit, no parking requirement. So that's why you might be thinking, hold on, Dan, you mentioned parking requirements earlier, but I can think of several ADUs that don't have any parking specific to the ADU. And there you go. It's because if you're within 1/2 mile of public transit, you do not need to have any specific parking requirements for the ADU. Now, there's a second way that you can avoid any parking restrictions or requirements for an ADU, and that's if the property is deemed historical or it's located within a historic district. So in both of those cases, you would not need any parking requirements in addition to the proximity to the public transit. Now, when it comes to designing the ADU, one really cool thing is that there are actually pre-approved plans for ADUs that you can find on san-diego-county.gov. So san-diego-county.gov, go there, you'll find the pre-approved plans, or of course you can work with an architect that can design something fresh and new for your particular property. Now, the answer to that is going to be based on what are your needs, what's your need for speed also, and are you doing something for a lifestyle purpose for you, your family, your own property, or is this really just for rental income? Rental income, you're often going to want to favor speed and simplicity, because the beauty of using the pre-approved plans is you're going to get permitting done a lot faster, and so you'll be making income a lot sooner. Now, stylistically, it could be very different architecturally. That is all up to you if you want to create a fresh new look. And it could be, of course, while attached and detached, which we've talked a little bit about. It could also be above the garage, or it can actually be a garage conversion. Now, before you begin construction, you're going to have to obtain permits, and those include building permits, electrical, plumbing. So work with your architect to make sure that not only are you not missing any permits, but also that they're being submitted on time. Permitting times can absolutely vary, and my gosh, if you think about just the permitting disasters that really have been going on since COVID, but they've been getting a lot better, a lot faster. And again, are you using pre-approved plans, or are you doing something from scratch? You could think of permits as taking, I would encourage you to think of it as something that's going to take 6 months to a year, but those days of closer to a year are, at least in recent times, definitely coming to an end. Realistically, you could even be looking at 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, but I always think, why not just plan a little bit, more time so you don't end up disappointed. Again, make sure your architect or whoever's submitting to the city knows exactly who to go to, what channels to use, has experience doing it. That makes all the difference in the world. And believe me, if you don't have the right person submitting to the city, just literally based on who's submitting can make the difference of several months. So that's something that you'll want to interview whoever is doing the designs for you and make sure that that's the case, especially if you're not using pre-approved plans. Now, I'm going to encourage you to go look at the pre-approved plans first, because they're really good. They make sense, they're proven, they are absolutely effective at creating income if that's what you're looking for. So make sure that you have a really good reason not to use them. Don't not use the pre-approved plans because you're just wanting to do something custom, do something new. The reality is there's very few instances, unless you're talking more luxury property, La Jolla, Rancho Santa Fe, Carmel Valley perhaps, unless you're talking about a very specific need, and make sure that you have a reason, that there's a real true reason, not just because you wanted it to be. Outside of that, I'm going to encourage you to use the pre-approved plans. Now, one of the keys is you're going to have to finance the ADU. So let's talk about that for a moment, because a lot of times people are asking, well, what's this going to cost? What's the investment? How much money out of pocket, right? So what's the cash requirement? So let's go there, talk financing the ADU. While of course you can pay cash for it, another thing that you want to make sure you look at is can you take a home equity line of credit out on the existing structure? So if your existing structure has enough, your current property has enough equity in it, you very well could borrow the cash, the equity out of the property using what's known as a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, and then build the ADU with that. The beauty of a HELOC is that they're typically interest-only payments, and so you're only also ever paying interest on the amount that you've used. So meaning, let's say that you're pulling $300,000 out of the current property into a HELOC. Now, I've already kind of misspoken because I said pulling out. The beauty of a HELOC is you're not ever pulling out the entire loan amount that's made available. You're only pulling out what you're actually drawing and using for the construction. So if the construction is going to cost you, let's call it $250,000 or $300,000, you're not spending all of that money on day one. It's being used over time as the construction progresses, and you're only ever paying interest on the amount used. So you could have a HELOC for 500 grand, but your payments are actually zero if you don't draw from it. When you draw your first $10,000 of pour foundation or do whatever you're doing at the property, now you're only paying interest on $10,000, so on and so on. I hope that makes sense, because also there is specific ADU financing available. The biggest thing is reach out to your agent. Of course, we can help make this really easy. It's people like you sending us text messages, phone calls, emails. We'll set up a Zoom call, and we'll structure the right conversation for you with the right resource so you can get the right financing. Feel free to reach out on that. Now remember that our city wants us to build ADUs. They want density. The biggest problem San Diego has is, and it's also its biggest blessings, right, is that border to the south, the ocean on the west, the desert on the east, and of course Camp Pendleton on the north end of the city, or of the county. So we have a limited amount of land, and with that comes our protected property values, and it's one of the great things about San Diego. But at the same time, we built San Diego in this, kind of very spread out suburban way, and now we have to add density. So the San Diego Housing Commission, they want you to be able to put these on, and so they have a program to assist low-income earners that have a residential property to get financing for their ADUs. So if you believe you might qualify for that, that's something to look into. Of course, we could help you do that, but just be aware that the idea that, hey, I don't have the finances, I don't make the money, that is not necessarily a reason for you to give up on your dream of having that additional income that the ADU could provide you on your property. Now, just like on that very quickly here, as far as investment goes, think about this. The reason you want to take this seriously and why so many San Diegans are doing this, when you go get an income property, you're typically having to pay, right? If you just go in and buy an investment property, you're having to buy the structure, but you're also having to buy the land. When you do an ADU, the land is coming for free. You already own the land. You already own the residential property. And now you get to build the structure with no land costs. And that's really the biggest, just opportunity, the reason that ADUs will typically kick off so much more rental income for the investment, for every dollar invested, than anything else you can really do, because the land comes with it. It's already there. You already own it. And so that shouldn't be overlooked. It's the number one reason why this is a huge investment opportunity for all of us in San Diego, and I hope you're taking advantage of it if you have a property that you can do so with. By the way, that low-income program will provide assistance with not only loans up to $250,000, okay, of financial assistance, but also the technical help that you need to actually get through it all, the permitting, all of it. It's a really awesome program. Make sure you look that up. It's through the San Diego Housing Commission. And the numbers behind it are kind of ridiculous. 1% fixed interest rate, okay? So just literally unheard of. It's basically free money. And maximum loan to value of 75%. The city wants you to do it. It creates affordable housing. It is, something I learned a long time ago is when you look at just kind of city, tax code, when you look at what you're able to do, a lot of people will fight against, regulations, permits, taxes, but a lot of it, if you just realize that the tax code, and in this case, what the San Diego Housing Commission is asking you, or, not allowing you to do versus allowing you to do, if you follow what they're looking for, there's huge incentives typically behind it, because the entire tax code and permits, right, it's all really just structured to encourage you to do certain things and not do other things. In this case, they're encouraging you to put these properties on 75% loan to value, 1% fixed interest rate, which again is like free money. And so it's a really good way for you to take advantage of current policy. So how do you know if you qualify for that program? Well, you'd have to be making 120% or less of San Diego median income. It has to be a residential property. The main house, okay, now here's one, the main house has to be owner occupied, and you have to have a minimum credit score of 680. So your financing is in place, your contractor's ready to go, you have the building permit. Now the construction itself can take several months, so just be prepared for that. It's not going to come up overnight. This could easily be a 3, 4, 5, 6 month project, depending on how big you went, how complex you went, and how custom it is. Now, somebody that's built his own home from scratch, I can tell you one thing: make sure you are in constant communication with the contractor. Make sure that when you hire the contractor, you have set guidelines, and hopefully you've even been able to structure pay according to how they're on time. Now, when they set out the construction, not just the construction budget, but the timeline, I would encourage you ask them give you a calendar. And on that calendar, that they give you all the milestones, right? This is when foundation will be poured. Here's where roof will happen, right? So you want all that mapped out, because without a calendar, with all the different milestones laid out on it, you're not ever going to really know if you're on track or off track. And that is critical. Believe me, I made the mistake myself. So make sure that I can't impress this enough on you. Okay, obviously it's coming with a little bit of I have a few scars from this. So just make sure that you really emphasize to the contractor and see if you can negotiate any kind of penalty on their fee if they go beyond a certain date. Now, if you are using the San Diego Housing Commission program, they will give you an ADU consultant and they'll help you throughout the whole process. So make sure that you don't pass up on that opportunity if you're a part of that program. Of course, that won't be available to you if you're using cash or anything else. The other tips that I could just share with you that you would want is vendor selection. The contractor should have all of their relationships with vendors, but you very well might have somebody that you know in the tile space, in the cabinet space, millwork, you name it, and you want to be sure that they will allow you to use your vendor if you were to choose, or at least to be able to bid out the job with both. And so remember that the way contractors are typically paid, and this is a big point, contractors love getting paid on what they call cost plus. So cost plus means that if the let's just say it's cost plus 10%, right? It could be cost plus 15, it could be cost plus any number, but just using cost plus 10. That means that if let's just call it the roof is going to cost from the subcontractor, if that's going to cost $50,000, then, and that's just a number, by the way, obviously most roofs are less than that, but just to use easy numbers, $50,000, then they're going to actually charge you $55,000. That's what's cost plus. So in other words, the contractor is incentivized for everything to be more expensive, because they get paid more for it, because the more expensive it is, the more they charge, and the less they fight, by the way, for the price to be down, the more they're going to be paid, because they're getting paid a markup. The way that I would encourage you to try to negotiate your contractor is on a fixed price. So in other words, they say, look, the raw job, I've bid it out, and get multiple bids. Definitely want to do that. But the bid, let's say contractor A and contractor B, and contractor A has bid out the job at $300,000 and contractor B at $350,000. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean contractor A at $300,000 is automatically the better one. A is, well, what did they bid out? What are the materials they bid? Are they the ones you want, or are they inferior to what your expectation is? In which case, it turns out contractor B gave you the respect of a realistic bid. But once you select the contractor either way, now what you're wanting to do is negotiate a fixed fee. So it's, okay, great. I'm going to go with you, and I will pay you X amount for you to do the job. And the X amount that I'm going to pay you is for you to do a great job, meaning you're driving down the price, you're keeping it on time, and if we're not on time, I'm going to subtract this much. That would be the ideal way to do it. I have to admit that's not the way that I negotiated the construction of my home, because I could not find a contractor to do it. They love to do cost plus, but on an ADU where you might not need as big of a contractor, you still very likely can find someone that'll do fixed price. So that's just fixed price versus cost plus, and just my word of caution, my advice. And at the very least, if you are going to do cost plus, if the contractor you decide on is going to require that, then tell them this. Say, listen, that's great. The bid is $300, right? Like the job is $300. You're getting obviously $30,000 just as a number, right? If it's plus 10%. But what happens if instead of doing this tile, I do that tile? It's no additional work. I decided this later on. I still only want to pay you the $30,000. Now, if I decide that I'd want some new complex something that creates, a structural change, creates more work, is more detailed, I understand I'll have to pay more. But the point I'm imparting on you is that if you selected, right, you have your bid, they're happy to do it for the $30,000. And then if you go from saying, you know what, instead of this wood, I want that wood, and the material cost happens to be just a few more dollars, why should you pay more to the contractor? They're doing no additional work. So that's almost a way for you to create a hybrid of cost plus versus fixed price. So once you've done that, you're on your way, you're building your ADU, you have two more things to go through. One's inspections, and the other is going to be final approval. Let's talk about that. You're going to have inspections along the way and just making sure that where they'll come out and make sure that everything is on track, that you're doing the right things, especially around plumbing, sewer, all those sorts of things. But once you have the property done, you're going to have to go get final approval. And while I say you're going to have to go get it, hopefully you have someone on your team, right? Your builder that's going to go get it. But what they're really looking for is, are you compliant with building code? Do you have the right setbacks? Is everything the way that it was supposed to be according to the approved plans? And then they'll stamp off and you're ready to go. It becomes an official part of the property. It gets on title, and you have your certificate of occupancy. That's the game. That's what you're going for. When you have certificate of occupancy, now you are done with the process. You can enjoy it. You can put a family member in it. You can go multi-generational. Get that tenant in place. You're done. This is that, right? It's a process. You have to go get, it's all the way from when you're conceptualizing it through when you're building it all the way through. Typically, again, could be 4 months, it could be 6, it could be longer. That depends on how picky and how custom you went. But that's everything that's included in the process of getting an ADU. If you do find yourself at this stage, I want to say congratulations. Number one is you've added tremendous value to your property. You have options. You have options to use it in so many different ways, and you've really done what San Diego County needs. You've helped us add density. You have helped create more opportunity for more people to enjoy safe and comfortable living. Enjoy your ADU, enjoy the income, enjoy the increased property value. I'm Dan Beer, and we look forward to having you on the next one. By the way, hold on a second. Tap that bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next video.